Welcome on Texas football. I'm Bobby Burton. It's time for a roundtable, guys. Brought to you by our friends over at South Point Dodge. This roundtable, we came to y'all in the preseason and we talked about our predictions for the season. There were some 10-2s, 11-1s, 12-0 in there. Now we're going to take a second look at that now that we're 4 games into this year, a third through the season, and not necessarily go game by game and every single person talking about it. This will be a shorter video, and we'll get more to the point with a lot of it. But I do want to talk about what we've learned throughout the season and where we might have changed our picks based on what we know thus far, not only for Texas, but for teams they're going to play. All right, let's go ahead and start. And with that, Florida, in my opinion, this is one of the games I had Texas losing in the preseason. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm not picking Texas to lose this game now because I didn't expect Florida to be 1-3 when the Horns went to Gainesville in a week and a half. So I'm a little bit different. Florida is just a drastically different team than I anticipated or foresaw. They're having a hard time making first downs right now. I think they've scored 1 offensive touchdown in each of the last 3 games. Texas defense is pretty salty. So I'm gonna change my pick. Anybody have anything about Florida? I can't be the only one that thought they would be better than this, right?
No. Yeah, I thought Florida would be better than this. I mean, they're so good on defense, but they're a disaster on offense so far. And I don't think anybody thought they'd be a disaster with Jaden Ball, DJ Lagway, Eugene Wilson, Vernell Brown, J. Michael Stern. We talked about it, interior offensive line that had an All-American preseason. You didn't think they'd be a disaster on offense. But my only take on this game, we're going to break it all down for the next week, but it's a must-win game, period. End of discussion.
For both sides, really.
For Billy Napier's probably past that point, but for Texas, if they take a second loss here, the playoffs get dicey.
Yeah. Anybody have anything they want to add on the Florida side? CJ, you look like you're ready to say something.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game, right? Florida has a good defense. They've shown up in 2 really big games already this year. What's interesting is, look, we've talked about Lagway not being what was expected, but that run game hasn't necessarily been good either. And this is with Jaden Ball, who by himself has Florida second in the SEC in missed tackles forced for all running backs, right? That's a pretty significant mark, yet 73% of all of their running back yards come after contact. That's bottom 5 in the SEC. They're also bottom 5 in yards per game on the ground from their running back game. So they can't necessarily register a whole lot of success on that ground game. And when that's the case and your quarterback's throwing 5 picks in a single contest, well, good luck moving the football. It'll be interesting what that matchup looks like against this Texas front, which so far has withstood the test of who they faced through 4 weeks.
All right, moving on to OU. Big news came out this week. I mean, I think that all of us saw John Mateer against Michigan and Auburn said, hey, this dude can play. He's going to present a problem. I'm not saying Texas would not be favored in the game if John Mateer were to play. But Jeff and Rod, y'all's thoughts on what Mateer's injury does to how it shapes the Texas OU game in 3 weeks up in Dallas?
I go from giving it maybe a coin flip deal because it's Red River and that's how much I respect Mateer as a player, to I have no reason to pick Oklahoma if John Mateer isn't playing in that game. I think their receivers are good. I don't think they're great. Similar to what CJ said about Florida, Oklahoma can't run the football. Like, they can't line up traditionally and run the football right now. I mean, their run game is pretty much Mateer making things happen. Jay Knott's been MIA. Torrey Blaylock has been their main guy, but he's a young guy, probably not going to give you a lot of thump between the tackles. So at least that's what it's looked like when I've watched OU. So yeah, I don't give Bobby OU much of a chance to beat Texas without John Mateer. And I said it in the preseason, I'll say it again. The pressure's on Sark, because if to get where he wants to be, where I really think, and I think we all do, believe he can take this thing, no Texas coach has done that, been at a consistently elite level where you're competing for championships year in and year out without a sustained run of success against Oklahoma. So it's time for Sark to start beating Oklahoma on a regular basis.
Yeah. What do you think? What does it do to the game, Rod, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the question really is how elite is that Oklahoma defense? Right now, they're top 10 in yards per play allowed, scoring defense, third down defense, looks like that defensive front and that defensive line would be one of the best in the SEC. I think they may be a little bit vulnerable on the back end, but that's the real question because to me, ultimately, I have to, lean Texas in this matchup now because they do have their starting quarterback. If Mateer is not available for Oklahoma, they do have a defense to be able to keep it close. But ultimately, I wonder how they're going to be able to put points on the board up against this Texas defense. So this is actually a matchup I feel confident about now. I'll admit, though, guys, prior to Mateer's injury, I probably was leaning Oklahoma. I ain't going to lie to y'all. I probably was leaning – I told a few people that behind the scenes, so I'll be up front with it. But now I'm confident. I think Texas definitely has the advantage here.
So y'all are looking at this. Then I think all of us expect, and I put in quote marks, expect Texas to be 6-1 after the first 7 games. Is that the expectation? They're 3-1. Excuse me, 5-1 after the first 6 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lady luck.
Something unforeseen. Yeah.
Okay. All right. After OU, they immediately go to Lexington, Kentucky. Could be a trap situation. Kentucky plays really well at home. They're going on to their second string quarterback already. Zach Calzada's injured. I don't know if he's going to be injured by the time Texas plays him. I guess we'll see. But it could be Texas playing another backup quarterback. Now, this is the quarterback, by the way, that did move the ball against Texas a little bit in the second half last year. He's a true freshman last year, sophomore, I guess, this year. Kentucky still think, though, Texas too much for the Wildcats, even after maybe 2 big games back-to-back like Florida and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I do. Now they have an off week before Texas. Here's what's interesting about that game. This is why I've had Kentucky as the trap game, because Texas has 2 big emotional games in a row, both away from home. By the way, it's at Florida and then neutral for Oklahoma. You're not going to get up emotionally for 3 games in a row. Kentucky has Georgia on the 4th, then an off week before Texas rolls in. So they have the off week plus Texas coming off 2 big games. No way the Longhorns bring the same emotional effort to Lexington they did the prior 2 weeks. It's human nature. It's not happening. And while I don't think Kentucky's very good and they're not as talented as they have been, I actually could see this being a really tough game for Texas, especially the first 2.5 quarters potentially, because it's just hard, man, to get up. And I'm before we even get into matchups, it's hard to emotionally get up 3 weeks in a row for games when the 2 and before them were that magnitude. I think, and it sets up for Kentucky to play Texas into the 4th quarter.
So you still think Texas is going to win, though?
Yeah, I do. Okay. But I think, I mean, I don't mean to go retired Lee Corso, but closer than the experts think.
Okay, that's fair. Anybody else think?
I'll piggyback on what Gerry said, though. You're getting to the point of the season, the midpoint of the season, where Gerry mentioned injuries. I just think everybody's depth period is going to be tested, and what does it look like, and how far down the depth chart are you having to go? And I think that's going to be more in play when we get into Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, who I think we look now much differently than we did at the start of the year. Depth for both those teams is going to be big. It's going to be big for Texas because I think even if Mateer doesn't play, I still think the OU game is going to be a rock fight, and it's Billy Napier's last gasp in the swamp. So you're going to have, to Jerry's point, not just 2 emotionally charged games. You're going to be physically taxed, and your depth's going to be taxed in those 2 games.
I want to say this. It could be Mark Stoops fighting for his career in Kentucky, too. Yep. By the time this game goes around, just depending how they do it. All right, then Texas finishes the month of October. It is a month on the road by going to Starkville. This game looks different now than it did in the preseason. Blake Shapen is playing well for Mississippi State. Jeff Lebby's got more of his pieces to the puzzle inserted in his style of offense now. Seem to be somewhat improved on defense. They beat Arizona State at the buzzer, a team that took Texas to the buzzer, right? At the very least. What are y'all's thoughts on the Mississippi State game? Still think Texas wins? CJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I still think Texas wins. This is the game I'm a little bit more worried about. I don't fear Kentucky as much, but Mississippi State for me is interesting for a number of reasons. And we know what a Jeff Lebby offense looks like from his time at Oklahoma, right? They want to go deep. They want to score quick, but you got to have protection up front. No team, no roster in the SEC has more beef, guys over 320 pounds than Mississippi State, especially on that offensive side of the ball. They have 14 guys right now on that offensive line unit that are all over 320 pounds. They protect the quarterback very well this year. They've shored up the defense as well. I don't think Arizona State is that great, but they need a win like that to get to folks in that building to believe. And I think that's where you're looking at it right now. Levy's offense is looking like a Levy offense. They have protection. They have a veteran quarterback, though. We'll see if he's able to make it to the Texas game. Blake Shapen does get dinged up just about every season he's played. But that defense is going to be really, really tough, I think. A little bit tougher than what I think a lot of folks are anticipating at this moment.
I think ultimately for the thing that worries me is that Texas defense, although I think it's a really good defense, hadn't been tested with a quarterback who can play at a high level, especially if Mateer doesn't play. Julian Sand, I think, was a good test for him, but they were very conservative with Julian Sand, right? Used a lot of 12 personnel, didn't throw the football vertically downfield. He's playing great now, but that's later on in his development and maturity. Blake Shapen is a vet, played against Texas before back this time at Baylor. He is very, very comfortable in this system, right? So knows the system like the back of his hand. And so if he is healthy, this could end up being the first big test for a Texas defense against a quarterback who could potentially play it, has the capability to play at a high level against you in a system. So, and so that worries me a little bit on the road. And like you said, by this time, everybody on that Texas team is going to be a little bit worn out from the road trips to those emotional, very emotional games you're going to play, as you brought up, Gerry. So, yeah, they may be sleeping on Mississippi State. I hope not. But if Blake Shapen's playing, trust me, he'll be ready to go because he's got a little bit of a vendetta against Texas. Ain't no doubt about that.
I would add this. It's strange, Rod. You're saying this is the first quarterback Texas may see that has that kind of level. And if you would have asked me that 3 weeks ago, I would have said, well, you have DJ Lagway and John Mateer.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, well, Blake Shapen's playing better than both of those guys. Or not better than
you said they may not play that. I know DJ Lagway is going to play, but he's got more interceptions than touchdowns right now.
Yeah, I know. But going into the preseason, you would have said Lagway would have been the first guy, right?
That's true. No doubt. I agree 100%.
Yep. All right. Texas comes home and then plays Vanderbilt. Guys, the Vanderbilt game is interesting to me because I think we know exactly who Vanderbilt is. I mean, they show you every week. They're going to run option. They're going to run play action. They're going to try to keep the chains moving, all of that stuff, and then just try to keep you out of the end zone on defense, right?
Yeah.
Is this the game that's kind of weird? It's going to be the first home game for Texas in a month, though. You have to think Texas is going to be juiced for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Y'all have any changes or thoughts on this? I mean, from preseason, Texas still a superior team to Vanderbilt, you think, and with superior talent overall?
Jerry was worried about Kentucky. CJ's worried about Mississippi State. This is the one I'm worried about for two reasons. One, Diego Pavia, even if you dial it up on defense correctly, he can make you wrong with his playmaking ability. And until Texas proves otherwise, they're a really undisciplined football team. That Clark Lee team at Vanderbilt, they're not going to beat themselves. They're going to keep the penalties low. They probably won't turn it over. They'll play it close to the vest. So for those two reasons, Vanderbilt's the game I've got circled in this stretch.
Interesting.
I'm really different than most people on Vanderbilt right now, and I respect the hell out of Diego Pavia. I wouldn't want to fight him over my comments. I'll tell you that. They have played a poor schedule so far. Charleston Southern's terrible. Virginia Tech fired their coach. South Carolina's offensive line is bad. And Georgia State lost 63-7 to Ole Miss on top of 70-21 to Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt, I give them credit for where they're at, but I think they're being way inflated right now. And then you look at what they have before Texas. In the next month, we're going to find out what Vanderbilt really is. I mean, they're at Alabama on the 4th, LSU at their place on the 18th, and Missouri at their place on the 25th before they get to Austin. I think they've played the weakest schedule so far of teams we're talking about. And I think we're going to find out in the next month what they're really made of. But I think they're being way inflated right now.
That's fair.
One final note there. This game, Vanderbilt's going to come in with that same game plan Mississippi State had a year ago in Austin.
Yeah.
Slow down the game, have 8-minute drives if they can. Keep this thing close and let it linger to the second half. Texas was able to run away with that game against Mississippi State a year ago. But let's not forget, if it wasn't for a 50-yard dot from Arch to DeAndre Moore, it was 7-6 entering halftime. I think that's the same game plan, and reason why, obviously, Diego Pavia is one big piece of that pie. But right now, Mississippi State's the only team in the SEC where its collective group of running backs is averaging north of 7 yards per carry. Right now, if they were to ramp that up, they would be the best running game in the SEC conference. But that's not necessarily their MO. So we'll see if that changes at all and, ultimately travels to Austin with the idea to ground and pound.
I think it's funny. Vandy going for 2 in a row, by the way, against Alabama. We'll see.
If Kalen DeBoer wants to get on the hot seat, that would do it.
Yeah, that would do it. Hey, but I don't think our boy Nick Saban never lost to Vanderbilt. Before we go, Texas has a bye week the next week as we're going through this stretch. And with that bye week, I want to mention South Point Dodge. Hey, Texas football fans, score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, including the all-new 2025 Ram 1500. Get the real deal today and drive away in an all-new Ram, proven to last. Plus, you can get employee incentive pricing. That's right. You pay what our employees pay. Now, that's a real deal. Score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. Thank you to them for sponsoring us here at On Texas Football. Guys, the next game coming out of that bye week, it gets real quick. But I want to ask y'all this before we go in. What do you have Texas's record at going into that? Texas will have played 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They'll play 9 games. Does everybody have them at 8-1? Anybody have them slipping up, being 7-2 or 6-3?
8-1 here.
Yep, I'm 8-1, but that's about to change.
That's about to go. Rob with the bearer of bad news coming. Yeah. Jeff and Gerry, what about y'all? 8-1 or something else?
The only thing that gives me pause is the fact that this team is just so undisciplined with the penalties. And I know we keep getting asked on the site and on the live streams, hey, what can you do about penalties? What can you do about penalties? I think it just is what it is at this point. I mean, this team is just going to commit a lot of penalties. That's going to catch up with you at some point. But I think with the way Florida's playing on offense, John Mateer's situation, and then those next 3, I do think you'll be 8-1. But as Rod indicated, it gets cranked up a notch after that.
I'm a shaky 8-1.
Yeah, me too. Me too, because I just got to see Arch do it, guys.
Yeah, I got to see the offense be more consistent.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, but like I said, right out of the gate, Rod B, I'm going to you based on your comment that Longhorns go to Athens, taking on Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs. Going to be a lot of water under the bridge before we get there. It could be injuries on both sides. We don't know what it looks like. But if you had to say today, is this where you think Texas may be the underdog going to the House of the Dogs?
Yeah, I mean, Gunnar Stockton, obviously, he's not necessarily a threat in the passing game. I do think he is a little bit more advanced than folks anticipated. But I think the Texas defense can defend him really well because I think he's limited as a passer in the pocket. But I'm worried about that Sark offense on the road at Georgia, and I'm worried about Arch. And we've talked about the assumption is Arch, is no longer in a slump or had his slump buster versus Sam Houston. And we assume versus Florida at Florida that he'll continue to progress and won't regress. But we actually don't know that, to Bobby's point. And if there was going to be regression on this kind of developmental track for Arch, this is easily a place where I could predict a regression for him. And I could predict potentially Sark not necessarily having a game plan against Kirby Smart that is very, I don't know, I say competent, but I would say effective. I question that at times too.
Yeah, I mean, he made Quinn Ewers look ineffective last year in the regular season.
Yeah, and he did better in the championship. I'll get that. Better game plan in the championship game, no question about it, but still came up short.
They rank 81st through their first 3 games in pass defense. I don't think this Georgia secondary is where it needs to be. Now, they'll be tested, as you mentioned, Jerry, but can Arch and this Texas offense through the air get to where they need to be to go to Athens and pick apart what hasn't been a great passing defense so far? The other thing I wanted to mention is the health of a quarterback. You run the ball 28 times through 3 weeks against Marshall and Tennessee. Look, if you look into some of these SEC games with the physicality, I don't think that's a sustainable recipe if you're Gunnar Stockton.
And it's not if you're John Mateer either. Jeff, you had something?
Not for many.
Yeah. I just a game plan aside, and I'll before I judge the Texas offense, I want to see what it looks like when they've got all the pieces. I mean, it looks like they're going to be there against Florida, but let's see if Sark's been holding back. Let's see what it looks like with DeAndre Moore and Emmett Mosley and Trey Wisner and everybody back. But what concerns me about the Georgia situation is I look at Georgia's schedule, and Jerry, you said like they've got Florida and Mississippi State 2 weeks before Texas. After that, they've got Charlotte and then the Georgia Tech game. With that Charlotte game, that's basically a week off. If there's one coach in college football I trust to just get his team to put everything they've got into one game, and I have every reason to believe they'll do that, it's Kirby Smart. And until Sark can kind of get over this Kirby Smart problem that he's got, which a lot of coaches in college football do, by the way, I will give Kirby Smart the advantage.
I would say this as it relates to this game. This is the 10th game of the year. I feel more confident that Texas will be 8-2 or 7-3 coming out of that game than they would be 9-1. I think 7-3 at that point is more likely than 9-1. Until we see more consistency from the Texas offense. There's a lot of games that, like, I think the Mississippi State and Vandy game are now different games than maybe what I anticipated preseason.
Agreed.
All right. Final 2 games, but I want to qualify all of that. Final 2 games, Arkansas come to town. They have a good offense this year. Bobby Petrino's second year in Fayetteville, but they have a lame duck coach, I believe. This will be Sam Pittman's final year on the sidelines in Fayetteville. I don't have any doubt about that. Heck, there may even be an interim coach at that time named Bobby Petrino by the time he gets here. Texas, I think, should beat Arkansas. Like, of all these games, the way they line up, I think Arkansas is one of the games that just lines up really well for Texas, because it's the Arkansas strength of their offense against a strength of a Texas defense. Texas should be able to score points on Arkansas, though.
Yeah, I really want Bobby Petrino to be the interim, so that way Jerry can bring back the Bobby Petrino road rash meme from many years ago, which we'll keep that between us for now.
Yeah.
But yes, I need that for that week.
Anybody have anything else they want to add on Arkansas, or do we think that that's one of those games?
Their defense is terrible. I mean,
their defense is bad, but now they can score against anybody until they need a big score. Right? That's how they've lost both of their 2 games this year, and that's how they lost to Oklahoma State last year, right? It was in a position to win a football game or put it out of reach, and what do? You fumble it away. It happened 2 straight weeks for their 2 losses. They can score against anybody. They have a great quarterback who I think is a little bit too errant with the football, so Texas should have an opportunity to take the football away. But it's the self-inflicted that if they can cut down on that on the road, this game is going to be very close.
Yeah.
If Taylon Green is still the quarterback, by the way.
Right. Look, there's one thing we can say about Arkansas this year. They clearly struggle in cities with a great barbecue. 0-2. They aren't winning in Austin either.
They lost to Memphis.
That's the deep analytics there.
Jerry. Jerry dug deep.
Get that in your pipe, PFF.
All right. Here's my big hot take. Texas versus A&M will be for a playoff spot.
I like it.
Yes.
That's my belief.
I agree.
Whether Texas be 8-2 or 9-2 and going into the game, or 8-3, I don't think it's going to matter. I think the winner of that game goes to the playoffs.
I agree.
I want to put that out there. And so Texas hosting Texas A&M and I got asked this on Thursday on Jeff Ward's show in Austin. Are you buying the Aggies right now? Are they legit contenders, or are they pretenders at this point? Anybody want to take that on?
I buy the pieces around Marcel Reed because I was drinking the Marcel Reed Kool-Aid after the A&M game until CJ ran some numbers by me. I trust the skill talent that A&M has. I don't know if I fully 100% trust Marcel Reed yet.
I trust him in September and October, but I'm not sure about November. That's the problem with the Aggies. So I'll take the Longhorns.
CJ,
I don't know if I buy A&M. Again, that running game not where it was supposed to be. They're bottom of the SEC and forced tackles missed. That's with Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens back. That was supposed to be a big strength of theirs. And I think we're all experiencing the most hyped up 17 of 37 passing game in the history of college football. Look,
was that Marcel Reed's numbers against Notre Dame?
Yeah,
that was 17 of 37. So look, if he can get the ball to Mario Craver, if he can get the ball to Casey Concepcion, good things happen. They're elite playmakers. The question is, can he do that consistently throughout the game? I don't know. A hold away on a PAT, that might be looked at as a little bit differently.
Yeah. That was unbelievable muff by the Notre Dame backup. So what do we have here, guys? What are we thinking? Texas 9-3? We thinking 10-2, 11-1? Where are we at overall? CJ, I'll start with you.
I have Texas 10-2. Again, until I see it with my own eyes, I can't predict right now, especially on the road, that Texas will go to Athens and Steve Sarkisian will beat Kirby Smart head to head. Until I see it, I can't go with it.
Jerry,
this is a question better asked after the Florida game, because if that's a must-win game for Texas, if they win that game, I do think they'll make the playoffs. If they lose that game, then if the only reason they're going to lose that game is because the offense sputters again in a big game. And if the offense is just too up and down and lacks confidence, that's going to be an issue. If they lose to Florida, it will not be their last loss of the regular season.
Oh no. So what do you think?
Coin flip me between 10-2 and 9-3 right now.
Okay. Jeff?
I'm 10-2, but I don't feel great about that. I don't have a ton of confidence in that. And piggybacking off what Jerry just said, I want to see if Sark's going to adapt and change his style. And I hate to say go from being aggressive to being conservative, but look, there's probably going to be a game in that stretch, like the stretch we're talking about from Florida to Vanderbilt, where you're going to need to kind of take the air out of the ball, play field position, trust Jack Bowmeister, trust Mason Shipley, take the points, not go for it on fourth down. Is Sark willing to play that style to win a ball game? I'm not 100% confident that he is, but I hope he is.
Florida's the perfect game for that to happen, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought he did that against Arkansas last year.
He did.
In fairness. Jeff, in fairness. What do you think, Rod?
Well, all about how Arch, looks versus Florida. Florida's a good defense on the road. If he does look like he is getting out of his slump and starting to progress, then I think Texas could be a 10-2 team. That's where I have them right now. But they could easily slip to 9-3 and 8-4 if Arch is going to be up and down, inconsistent, and regress, and then have a good game, and then we see regression. So if he's not going to develop a consistent baseline or a trajectory of development, that I think ultimately, if you don't know what you can rely on week to week in the SEC at quarterback, you could be looking at a couple of more losses on the schedule easy.
I'm going 9-3 or 10-2, and I'm debating right now in my head. I would just say this: I think Texas is going to end up in the playoffs because I think they are going to beat A&M at home. In part because of what CJ talked about, like Marcel Reed. I just think Texas has a good beat on the Colin Klein offense, frankly, at A&M. And, those guys got to stay healthy too down the stretch. And I feel like Texas has better depth than A&M right now. And you're going to see that late in the season. But it's interesting because what's interesting to me right now and hearing all of you guys talk is the wide berth y'all are giving this Texas team right now. Like we're 4 games in, and I think all of us still have question marks. Do we not? And that is not necessarily what we were thinking going into the season. We thought Arch would be further along. That was a big assumption, but it was an assumption most of us made. And that's kind of got this it's got the wheels spinning a little bit. So we'll see how it ends up. All right, that's going to do it for this roundtable. Thanks again to our friends over at South Point Dodge for sponsoring us. Remember, you get employee pricing at South Point Dodge. The Stark family promises that. They're off of South I-35 in South Austin. Thank you to CJ Vogel, Gerry Hamilton, Jeff Howe, and Rod Babers, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchison. You guys have a good weekend. Hook 'em horns.